Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Thursday, September 25th. So, I started this video yesterday and I made some of it and I did the introduction you're about to hear after this one. But I thought I'd do another introduction because I watched this whole movie, Snake Eyes, and it's loaded with, these predictive programming type references to things that are very, like Charlie Shekels Kirk. This the stuff that happened recently to him. This whole Charlie Kirk operation. And it also makes references to Trump's fake WWE style assassination attempt, the thing I call Ketchup Gate and Band Aid Gate. And so there's a lot of clips I'm using. I'm going to talk a bit about this again in a second, but this is a Paramount Plus, a CBS movie. And so it's likely that they're going to copyright. I tried to make the clips as short as possible, but I wanted to show all the clips because there's so many connections. There's a Jezebel thing here. There's a whole bunch of shit, right? And so I want to have it all here. And so there's two ways of copywriting. One where they copyright something and they demonetize it, which means I don't get paid for my video, right? But if that happens, I'll leave it up here either way. And there's another way where they copyright it and block it. And so I'm going to post this on my Spotify account just in case, and you can watch the rest of it there if they end up taking it down or something. I don't know if that's going to happen, but we'll see. They're probably going to copyright it and leave it up. But if not, it'll be on my Spotify account, and then if necessary, I'll put it on. If you go to my description box to any of my videos, you'll be able to find my Spotify account, and I might put it on since I have some other backup accounts and things like that that are not YouTube. But either way, just incriminating. It's pretty bad. The main part is there's a Department of Defense secretary, Department of War now, the Pete Hegseth of this movie, gets shot in the neck and bleeds out, and is bleeding from his neck at a big boxing match in Atlantic City. And, and his name is Charles Kirkland, right? So, there's that. But there's a lot more in here than just that. So let's get into it. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. This is Wednesday, September 24th. I'm starting this video for tomorrow early because there's some things I want to say here, a story I want to tell, and a lot of coincidences that probably aren't coincidences. So one of my viewers, which I am glad that this person wrote this comment, it's a valuable comment, said that there is a movie called Snake Eyes starring Nicolas Cage. I'd seen this movie maybe twice. I think I'd seen this a long time ago, and I watched it again going, I think I've seen this before. So it sucks. It's not a movie I would watch once. Nicolas Cage might have made a lot of shitty movies. Recently I was watching the Charlie Sheen documentary, and he talked about partying with Nicolas Cage, who had bought some sort of a castle. The guy got in severe debt, and so he was making all these shitty movies. But Charlie Sheen's party buddy was Nicolas Cage. And it turns out that in this movie Snake Eyes, which I remember the opening scene, that's all I kind of remember from the movie. And they're at a very public boxing event. This ties into Trump's boxing and WWE and all that stuff. And there is a guy who is Secretary of the Defense, now, of course, Secretary of War, and his name is Charles Kirkland, very much like Charlie Kirk. So it's Charles Kirkland. And he gets shot in the neck, and his blood pours out of his neck at the fight. It is very similar. I've got all the scenes here, and I'm going to go through it, and there's a lot of like Illuminati stuff and other things in it, which of course there always is. It takes place in Las Vegas, not that far from Utah. Utah is a couple hours away. I lived in both Vegas and Utah, and depending on where it is in Utah, but they're neighboring states. And it was on Paramount Plus. I searched for the movie. It was on Paramount Plus, which is good because I have Paramount Plus, but bad because Paramount Plus copyrights everything. And so I want to show a lot of clips of the movie. They may or may not run ads or ads at first, but eventually they'll probably copyright this video. And so, as I don't like to work for free, this might be a video where I ask for donations. If 100 people give $1, my bare minimum per day is $100. But unless they might not copyright, I don't know. But if they do, if they're running ads, like again, sometimes they run ads for a couple of days, but then there's a copyright issue. But I'm going to run it no matter what. I'm not going to, I'm going to make the clips as short as possible, but I want to show a bunch of the clips because there's a lot in there. The fight is fixed. Like I kind of remembered that when I was looking at there's a scene, and I think that comes around. So I'm going to watch the rest of the movie. I've only watched the opening scene, and today and tomorrow I'll watch the rest of the movie and put that in. And so here it is. Here are the clips.
It's my day! Running security tonight. I got a lot on my mind. Kirkland's high profile is all over the news and brings the nutcases out of the woodwork.
Kirkland's high profile, and he brings the nutcases out of the woodwork. Right? So this could be something. This is something you could say about Charlie Kirkland, Charlie Shekels Kirkland. So that's the first piece.
He's a real publicity hound. Look at this.
The Olympic Games, and now the distinguished Secretary of Defense of the United States of America, Mr. Charles Kirkland. And seated next to the Secretary of Defense.
Charles Kirkland, there he is. So that's come on, right? I'll say what my various theories about this are. I've talked about this before about predictive programming.
Great idea. Put a flashing light on your head while you're at it.
Great idea. Put a flashing light on your head while you're at it. Now, there's a couple theories out there. There's one guy was signaling it was time to do whatever event, shoot, fake, whatever it is. Also, flashing light on the head could be a hologram. There's the hologram theory. So, there's a lot of this in here.
Maintain focus on the principle, mister. Sorry for that. Got your locator on? Yes, sir. Go cover the West End.
So this guy has a tracking device. And again, this is an old movie. This guy's got a tracking device. Also, there was a few bald guys involved that were around the stage when this happened. Of course, there will be. But, it's something, right?
Throw in a couple martinis while you're at it. It's fight night.
So, as he says, it's fight night. Erica Kirk walks by. It's an Erica Kirk lookalike. There's two of them.
While you're at it. It's fight night.
Look. See that blip?
He's tracking the bald guy.
You were usually under the boardwalk with a cute piece of jail.
So I think what he said there was you were usually under the boardwalk with a cute piece of jailbait or tail, I'm not sure. And, there was a trap door, people were saying, a trap door that was there in the stage and, all that. So and that's Erica Kirk again, holding a round number 7 sign.
Listen, I gotta hit you up for something. Why'd you just crazy about?
Yeah, she's very bouncy. So there's two possible Erica Kirks in the opening scene here.
You got a wife, a kid, a house in Margate, a girlfriend, and an apartment. Being a cop pays 6 figures now?
6 figures, again. There's, I think 3 mentions of the word 6. I didn't catch them all here. But he's also talking about you got a wife and a side piece in an apartment. And, this could be like a Donald Trump reference, right?
You gotta get out of this town, you know that, don't you?
Would you stop going all Jimmy Cricket on me? You can't help yourself, can you?
Really, I mean, get your butt down to D.C. I call a few guys I know from Annapolis, arrange some interviews, get your GS rating, you're in our program.
Come to D.C. and be in our program. They have a lot of mind control programs there. I mean, all these things. And so I think this guy is guilty. I think this guy is, spoiler alert, that he's the guy that ends up doing the murder. He's a Navy man, and somehow he's in charge of the Secret Service here.
I managed to get my face on TV a few times. Maybe I'll run from there or something, but that's as far as I want to go. Because I was made for this sewer, baby, and I am the king!
He was made for this sewer, and he is the king.
We wondered just how seriously the camp is taking this.
I think this guy is in real life a Christian Republican actor. Don't remember his name, don't care, don't tell me, don't need to know. But he ends up following this red woman in a red dress. You know, my previous videos, you have a whole playlist here. In my 2 videos ago, or last video, I talk about one of my viewers reminded me that the stage was bathed in red. Of course, that's the color of sacrifice and Illuminati rituals, or these Freemasonic rituals and things. You know what red is. Like, red is a part of all these things. The woman in the red dress, lady in red, she has red hair. He follows her and leaves an open line of sight so that the this thing can happen. And I think, again, he's the guy setting it up. So she's a woman in the blonde wig who threatens Charles Kirkland, like Charlie Kirkland. Charlie Kirk, Charlie Shekels. And he's sitting right behind her.
Hello? What? Who are you? Where?
So I think I remembered this Illuminati eye, or I think when I watched it, I noticed there was a lot of this like Illuminati symbolism. And there's this blimp-like thing that's up there, again with the red lettering.
Where? My lucky number. What?
So I don't know if the number 7 has significance to Charlie Kirk, but they wave the 7 again. And here is and I think that's a reference to God. I'm not sure. You guys will know. You can leave comments about it. But I do know Donald J. Trump lied about when his fake assassination attempt happened, that he looked down at his hand and he saw blood. And you can see from multiple video clips there's no blood on his hand. That he was shot, like he claimed he was shot. He touched his ear, and when he looked at his hand, it was full of blood, and then he got down on the ground. That's how we knew he was shot, but that didn't happen. So it's interesting that happens here with Nicolas Cage. So first, the secretary is shot in a chair, sitting down just like Charlie Kirk. Let me show you that again. I didn't get this shot in with my phone. So first, she threatens him.
Now listen to me, Mr. Secretary. I'm telling you, you are the one that's going to be sorry.
And then we'll go back to it here.
My lucky number. What?
So he has fake blood on his ear like Trump did. Right? And he looks at his hand. And then you can see the blood is gushing out of his neck as he puts his hands over his neck. He's just shot in the exact same place as Charlie Kirk is. Okay, so it's now 8 o'clock. I was doing this at 5. We ate dinner and went for a few walks. And we did some other things, chores and stuff. And I was interested because this number 7 kept on coming up. So I asked ChatGPT if the number 7 was significant to Charlie Kirk. And this is what ChatGPT had to say. Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, was associated with the Seventh Mountain Mandate, a concept advocating for Christian influence across 7 societal spheres. In 2020, he praised President Trump for understanding these 7 mountains of cultural influence. So there are 3 sevens there. Now, this number 7 came up a few times. That initial time where that girl who looked like a sort of Erica Kirk lookalike.
Listen, I gotta hit you up or something. Why'd you just crazy about?
So it doesn't make it past the first round. So there's the Erica Kirk lookalike in the number 7, and they don't make it to the 7th round. 7 is shown numerous times, and then it's shown right before he gets shot, or the guy gets shot in. Nicolas Cage gets blood on his ear. Let's watch that again.
My lucky number. What?
So he makes reference to Nicolas Cage having a wife and a mistress, which is very Trump-esque. He's very loud and gaudy. This is Atlantic City, by the way, too. And Trump has a connection. He had a casino in Atlantic City. It isn't New Orleans. It was in Las Vegas. Trump also has a building in Las Vegas, but he had a casino in Atlantic City. This guy is very Trump-esque, and he gets the blood on his hand and his ear and then his hand, but it's fake blood, obviously, because it's not only a movie, but he is also, not shot. And then this guy gets shot and blood is gushing out of his throat. Also, let me show you this as well. This is part of the story.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
So my wife remembered that yesterday we were walking around our pasture. It's a great time for us. We have this goldenrod, just a field of goldenrod in our pasture. And we got so many insects and butterflies and there's just all these other sort of fall migrations and things going on. And my wife said that again today. So we're about to go out. I just read the comment, and I hadn't yet looked it up, about how there was a guy named Charles Kirkland who was Secretary of the Defense, Secretary of War now, right? And he had been shot in the neck in a very similar fashion to Charlie Kirk. I mean, a coincidence that's, there's all this stuff about predictive programming, which I'll talk about in a moment. But this idea, Bush used to have these Bushisms. And, him saying, you don't fool me twice. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And so, this has been done over and over again, particularly with Trump. I mean, this whole video is also tied to Trump, with Nicolas Cage having fake blood on his hands and fake blood on his face or his ear. And then the other references, and Atlantic City ties it to Trump and these things. And so Trump and has an association with the number 7, as does Charlie Kirk. They have a connection with that, as I read from ChatGTP. And they're displaying the number 7 here. So many things that are in here. There's going to be more. I'm going to watch the rest of the movie tonight or tomorrow, and I'll take some more clips. But the other piece of this is, so my wife and I are walking, and I show her the video. I pull up the video on YouTube, and while I'm showing her the video, my wife says, look over there. She wants to get me to video it, and we have these garter snakes that are now coming out and looking for their dens. It's getting into the fall, and they all go they have some place, turtles, different reptiles, they can't stand the winter. And so they're looking for places to go. They have their dens where they go, and sometimes it can be a cave or something like that, something underground, where they go, and there's thousands of them. And we see them migrating now. They cross our path. We've seen probably 15 garter snakes. We haven't seen it, maybe 1 or 2 all year. And now we see them. And I look over, and there's a garter snake. So I just heard about the movie Snake Eyes. And there's a garter snake, and there's a big leopard frog. And they just both happen to be there. Now Tulsi usually would be trying to kill the leopard frog. She's pretty hard on frogs. And this leopard frog is standing there in front of us on our path, to the right of our path. And this snake looks like it's too small. Leopard frog's pretty big. I don't think this snake could have gotten in its mouth, but it's, it's right in front of it. And it's, we've seen 2 things we usually don't see. And I go to get my, switch my camera over from George W. Bush, but my phone the YouTube goes from autoplay. And so that short video clip of George W. Bush goes by, and they love to recommend ESPN. Of course, ESPN is associated with Disney. And of course, there's the Jimmy Kimmel thing. Jimmy Kimmel just came back on air last night, and he went after Trump. So there's that, whatever's going on. And I don't like Stephen A. Smith. He's very loud, and the way that he went after Kyrie Irving over the vaccine stuff, and he's just my least favorite sports person. I listen to some sports stuff, as just a mindless thing, where I'm not focusing on news or something I'm going to cover in a story. I mean, sometimes I do sports stuff, but usually not. But I don't really like the ESPN stuff and Stephen A. Smith, but YouTube is always recommending it. He's so loud. And he comes out, he starts yelling, and the snake and the frog disappear. So I didn't get it on video. But, this whole thing was connected to what was going to happen, because we have this movie called Snake Eyes and all the rest of these things. And so I want to talk about predictive programming. I have this in my life where I will think of an obscure reference, something in a movie, something in a TV show, and it will then appear like a movie I haven't seen in 20 years will all of a sudden be being shown on somehow it'll come up on TV, or there'll be some reference to it, or there'll be something, somebody makes a reference to it on a sports broadcast or something. I have that happen all the time, like probably like 3-4 times a month, where something abstract pops into my mind, and then there'll be a reference, like it'll come back around and it'll get like some sort of confirmation. And there's all these ways people have experienced things like this. And to me, it's a way of showing you that there's part of a plan, that everything is orchestrated. And especially when you see something like this in the movie, of course, the other way to look at it is that these so-called controllers know that they're going to kill this guy, this plan. This movie's 27 years old. And so the script was written probably, it's probably as old as this guy Charlie Kirk was, like 31 when he died. So it's probably like this little baby Charlie Kirk who'd been raised in some sort of CIA family training camp, mind control family camp, and they have this thing planned out 30 years in advance. I mean, that's the way you could look at it. 30 years ago, they knew this was going to happen, and they put these references into it, and so that you have some reference point to it, and so many people watch this shitty movie. I mean, there's a number of ways to look at it, but either way, it's kind of almost like a miraculous thing in the sense of, for 30 years to execute a plan like that. I mean, I haven't seen that kind of competence from the controllers. But, but the other idea is this is somehow divinity showing itself, showing that there's a plan here. But either way, you see these predictive program things all the time. Like, nobody can really say for sure what it is. I believe that both things are possible, what I'm saying here. But I do know the things that I experience, and things like deja vu, and there's different ways, that I've experienced some sense of, oh, wow, this is a plan. This isn't random. This is, there's consciousness here. There's consciousness to what's happening. And, I had this interaction where this clown Dodgy, the third master of the Sajmark system, I was going to present these various things that my family had done as like a research project that would have actually helped him in the mission of the organization. But he turned out to be a real piece of shit. And he starts kind of like reprimanding me in a goofy way in front of my kids. Reprimanded me and my ex, but kind of was directed towards me. And there was 2 different people. There's a couple and a guy. The guy I had a beef with. I had, we had bad relationships. In the whole organization, these were the 2 sets of people. And they were in the room. They were in India. This is in India. And this couple they both lived in America. The one guy was Indian, so he was in India a lot more. And he and I had argued over the mission becoming an NGO because of, for the UN. And we had this really sort of like, nasty exchange. And, he said that I shouldn't be so idealistic and a bunch of other. And I'm like, if I wasn't idealistic, I could be just some sociopath making lots of money and, doing real damage out there. I'm being a spiritual person. I'm doing spiritual stuff, right? I'm practicing spirituality because I am idealistic. I think the world is, can become a better place, and I can contribute something. Otherwise, why would I be doing this shit, right? But anyways, it got ugly, and he's in there, right? And the couple is a couple of preceptors that had a beef with my preceptor, and we had really bad relationship, and the wife had done some like really sneaky, manipulative shit to kind of undermine me, and it was fucked up. Like, it was just fucked up stuff. And for him to be chewing me out in front of them, and I'm like, there's no way this is a coincidence. There's no, like, this has happened over and over to me where I'm like, all right, this is a plan. I'm just going to relax. I'm not going to, this is just obviously a plan. This isn't like these, of all the people that were in the room while this is happening, these are the worst. And then, it turned out that this guy Dodgy was a piece of shit anyway, so none of it really mattered. But, there are these things that happen to you that let you know that there's a consciousness. People who believe in God believe in a plan. people who are atheists believe that everything's random. And I've had confirmation after confirmation of a plan, and you could say this thing is part of it. And again, me seeing this movie, I think 2 times. This happened to me a few times where I see some movie and I don't, I have a good memory, but I don't remember anything to do with the movie. And then I'm like halfway through it going, oh yeah, I saw this before, this kind of thing. But I had some reference point and somebody leaves a comment and then all this other stuff falls together like it's not an accident. All right, let's get back to the clips here. So here you have the chaos of the, what happened with Charlie Kirk. Of course, they didn't move after Trump's fake assassination attempts, whatever what happened there. Like everybody stayed put and everyone panicked in Utah with Charlie Kirk. And this is, very similar, the whole thing here. The chaos and then the wrecking of the crime scene. Okay, so this is Thursday, September 25th. I'm continuing the video. I watched the rest of the movie last night, and it is just loaded with stuff. Here you see the red light. They're very, big on the red light. I explained that before, so we'll keep on going here. Okay, so Kevin is the villain, and spoiler alert. It's kind of well worth watching the movie because there's a lot of details and things, and I don't know all the stuff that's out there. I'm not, I don't make videos like that anymore. I usually don't make videos like this anymore, and it's kind of enjoyable because I used to do this quite a bit. But I know there's a lot of various theories out there that I don't know that much about. That'll probably other people be able to see details of it in the movie. And people can point that out here. I'll get to the poster of the movie where Nicolas Cage is throwing up the water sign, something that Trump does quite often. There's connections not only to the Charlie Kirk shooting, but also to the fake Trump assassination and a lot of these other events. Like it's kind of a cheesy movie, but there's a lot in there that's revealing.
You're gonna be all right. You are gonna be all right, Charles. You're going to hospital right now. You're gonna be okay. You have my word on that.
This guy's the other villain. This also involves Palestine and Israel, which will be interesting later. As a patsy. There's a lone gunman, the whole lone gunman patsy thing that goes on in these things. There's a lone gunman patsy, and he's from Palestine, so we'll get to that in a bit. But this is the guy who runs the military-industrial complex that's behind the whatever corporation that's behind this thing.
The assassin, please. Sir, how does it feel to be a hero?
So this reporter reveals that the guy Kevin, his best buddy there from the Navy, has killed the alleged shooter. He says, "How does it feel to be a hero?"
I said no press inside the arena, Lou. Lou, not in the arena.
Hey, I can see why you want these other assholes out of here, but I didn't think you were talking about me, too. You know what kind of break this is for me?
You can't show this. Look at the mess on the floor. The guy's got a family. Have a heart, for Christ's sake.
So this is where the crime scene gets contaminated. There's a thing later on where there's sort of a hidden video that's revealed some of these other things that are, that are part of the theories around Charlie Kirk. And this guy says that he'll leave the spaghetti behind. He won't show the spaghetti, but he wants to show the rest of the crime scene. The boxer looks like he's about 50 years old, but he said airball, the Nicolas Cage character. So he realizes this fight has been rigged. The idea of some stage rigged event. So this guy ended up having to take a fall in the first round while the shooting was going on. So this element of a rigged, these rigged things that are always involved in these events. I thought that was interesting. There's this suite in the hotel, and I don't know what the name of the hotel is. Again, it's some Atlantic City fictional place. And on this door, and you see it in reversed here, there's a G and a D. But it's on the opposite side of where you can see the G. And I got so many clips here, I didn't want to go back and grab another one. But I thought about it, and then there's this scene from Monica Kirk when she's mic'd up and she's glomming onto Charlie's dead corpse. And she posted this on Instagram, this really, well, here it is. And she has this ring with a big G on it. So here is the Monica Kirk thing. Notice how she's mic'd up, and there's the ring with the G on it.
I love you.
So yeah, I think she has a microphone on her on top of them taping this for Instagram. I mean, it's so performative. I mean, it was so gross. But you see, she has this giant G ring. She has these, my wife had pointed out he's not wearing a wedding ring at all. But yeah, she has this giant G on her ring, which is, similar to that thing on the wall in the boxer's suite. There's people who think the G has some kind of Freemasonic. I don't know if I think there's some theories out there. It's like some Freemasonic thing.
Take any chances. Ali almost killed you the first time. Take the payday. First punch, you go down. Flop. Splat. That's you. That's you.
Okay, so he confronts him about flopping here. Which again, anything that's rigged and anything that's performative in this way, which we see in all these events.
I looked at the fight tape, Lincoln. Yeah, it was a phantom punch. A little bad Hollywood acting, but the Athletic Commission might.
A little bad Hollywood acting, which is what we see all the time. These crisis actors or wherever they are that are involved in these things. And I said Monica Kirk for some reason. I don't know why. But I don't know. I'm a little bit groggy today, this morning. But it's Erica Kirk, and just the acting and all the, just all the things that we see.
What about her? What about it? It was bright red, like it was on fire.
A Palestinian who's lived in the United States for the last 6 years. He's believed to be linked to a series of threatening letters.
So there's a Palestinian who was shot. He's a sniper. This guy shoots him, which they show. And the girl with the red hair is working for him. She's military. And so, again, the woman dressed in red and all all the stuff I said earlier about that. And then the Palestinian thing. And we know that Israel, it's been revealed by Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk himself, and now a lot by Candace Owens, that Charlie Kirk was, he was getting all this donor money from shills from handlers from Israel. And of course, he took this horrific position on Palestine to say that was okay, that the biblical land rights that Israel possesses made it okay for them to slaughter these Palestinian kids. I mean, he was being paid, Charlie Kirk, to go to these events and argue and debate college kids, dopey college kids, who were rightfully upset about the genocide that's happening in Palestine, the land grab, which has been the goal for all along. Hamas is more than likely an Israeli shill for, operation. They keep on doing things that help Israel achieve its goals of annexing the Gaza Strip. And these kids who just don't understand things because they're college kids and they're dopes are, they're rightfully upset about this. And they're having these protests. And Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to squash that shit because they need, this parasitic relationship with America where we give them all this money and support. And they had this shill, this guy, Charlie Shekels. I call him Charlie Shekels Kirk because he was taking all these shekels to endorse Israel and then argue with these kids. And he's a better debater and these things, and he would talk them down. But he was having second thoughts because he was losing his support. He was losing, people who we're moving towards where Tucker Carlson was and Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens, who are all equally, shills on this thing in their different way, because none of them will call out the bullshit Trump fake assassination. But he was, and he was talking about how Epstein and was a Mossad operative for these things. And so Israel started to, these people, these donors who were giving him money to shill for Israel, giving him shekels, turned on him, offered him a bribe, this is according to Candace Owens and these other insiders there. And, some guy they had paid for a whole building for them. I covered this in my last video. This is all the stuff on the playlist. And so this is where he got the name from me, Charlie Shekels. So Charlie Shekels was, embroiled in this thing with Israel and Palestine. And there's people who speculate that Israel took him out. It's certainly a distraction from the Epstein thing for Trump. I've talked about in my first video how this is a win. Charlie Kirk's alleged death is a win for Trump. It has, he was on his, he was on the defensive over his being best buddies with his perv bro, Jeffrey Epstein. And then, of course, Israel, he was starting to change his tune on Israel, and they didn't like it. So some of these are, of course, his wife has now become this big celebrity. And these are the people who are benefiting from his death. You always look at people who benefit from his death. And so let's watch that again, the Palestinian thing.
Palestinian who's lived in the United States for the last 6 years. He's believed to be linked to a series of threatening letters written to various defense secretaries expressing outrage over the sale of missile systems and other weaponry to Israel.
So a missile system that was sent to Israel. Some of these things that we just give them and to pay for them because they take our money, American taxpayer dollars, and bribe American politicians, which is kind of funny and pretty fucked up. But Charlie Shekels, he was pushing all this kind of stuff. And so they have their Palestinian patsy.
A handwritten note was found on Rabat's body.
Could you hold it up too, please?
Apparently he intended it to be found after the shooting.
This is a suicide note. This guy would later, you'll see him planted on the guy because this guy was working for him. He's running this military industrial complex, whatever it is, because of a failed missile system. And so they have a Palestinian patsy, and, they have his manifesto. These guys always have manifestos. It's always easier for a team of people to carry out an assassination, or as a fake assassination, or whatever it might be, than it is for one individual. They have this idea of this angry person, this manifesto writing motherfucker, and they all are cut from the same cloth. It's like they're all trained, even though they're independent, angry people who have a skill set in terms of their sniper ability and their ability to plan these things, like, hitmen, far above their abilities, right? Far above a person, individual person's ability. At least in the Kennedy thing, they took an ex-military sniper who was, some of the best snipers in the world are working, U.S. military guys. But, they take these like angry kids, some gay kid who's banging a transgender dude, and somehow he's a sniper, he's a hobby sniper, and this was a tough venue. You can hear experts talk about it to pull off something like this, especially someone who's acting on their own. But that's what they want, and now the FBI is putting pressure on Utah to wrap this thing up and make it about one guy, one angry guy, and they all write manifestos and suicide notes, and they have all the evidence right there, and so this becomes a non-person. He's dead. This Palestinian guy is dead, and he's got this note and the thing that's a closed case, right? No reason to look into it anymore.
To die for his cause. That's a suicide note. I fly into the arms of Allah, shit like that. He was all worked up about our missile sales to Israel.
So Nick Cage is a Atlantic City corrupt cop who is friends with this guy, and this guy picked him because he knew he was a shitty cop and he could easily be bought. But of course, it doesn't turn out that way because that's how these movies go. But just the way they roll out information, and they have these. This usually would be a CIA operation or whatever it is, but the way that they put these things together, where there's these backstories and all the info is there, so they can make they can turn the Palestinian guy into a patsy.
It's conceivable that he found out about the Norfolk test.
Norfolk test, what's that?
So they have a missile defense system, which the girl, the sort of the heroine in this thing, was trying to expose was a flawed system. And this guy works for the military-industrial complex that wants to put this failed system in place because of his, patriotic. And in fact, he's getting money from the military-industrial complex run by that other guy who was, the other villain here.
Betting that the redhead you followed is the same person who told Tyler to throw the fight. She's 1. Shooter's 2. Tyler's 3. The drunk who shouted the signal's 4. And whoever was on the other end of that radio was 5. 5 people make a conspiracy, right?
So Nicolas Cage is putting together this as a conspiracy and not... It's so easy to blame one dead lone gunman. The thing with Charlie Kirk is that the guy's still alive. But these guys never have any voice. They never have any... No one ever interviews them. If they did, they'd be like, this guy couldn't have possibly did it. Like, you never see these guys. Luigi Mangione and all these other people. This has been going on for years, and they just roll out some patsy. Often kill him, because if you kill him, it's great. The guys, never, they write some manifesto and, put some online shit up there, and they roll out these information packets day after day. I covered this extensively in the playlist. These videos are in the Charlie Kirk playlist. And so, there's a lot of stuff in this movie.
Everybody at DOD wanted it to work, and it did. The test went beautifully. By the time we got to the fight tonight, we were all high as kites. I let the excitement get to me. I lost my edge.
I see your ticket, please.
Okay, so that part is where that's the guy, Charlie Kirkland. He's the defense secretary, and the other guy's the CEO of the, military industrial complex missile making company. And then Moore is revealed as the heroine, the other girl, tells her story. There's a news reporter that was gunned down by some angry young guy, whatever. And he did a video like this and put it up on Facebook where he was holding the camera and you could see this gun and he was shooting people. Which is, But here's the dead Palestinian patsy, right? Where this guy has now killed him. He was right in place to do that because the girl, he chased that girl down. And that girl worked for him that you'll see later on. And she was military as well. And, he was in position to kill this guy and then put the note on him.
We need to be very, very careful with this. We go out there and yell conspiracy, it's like waving a lunatic flag. We got to get our hands on a redhead.
So this is a 1998 film before 9/11, before they demonized conspiracy theorists. I always talk about how if the government didn't lie all the time and the media didn't cover up for them and tell their own lies, if everyone wasn't a lying piece of shit, there'd be no need for conspiracy theories because we'd believe in the official story. But also, all these movies and TV shows have conspiracies in them. It's never the lone gunman. It's never some lone angry gunman, unless it's some, like a biographical type of, based on a real event. But when it's ever these fictional stories, it's always a conspiracy. The government's always involved, right? Governments kill people better. If you're going to do an assassination, having military-trained group of people, the snipers have spotters in the military. There's all these ways that having more people involved makes it better than just one angry lone kid who crawls up on a roof, writes a note to his transgender lover and, confesses and all that bullshit, right?
Kind of let me know during the fight. There was a guy in the front row. They told me what he was going to say, and he was going to be the signal to go down. I ain't never going to forget those words. Here comes the pain.
This guy's also military, and they make a big deal about him having the earpiece. And again, the technology was different in 1998. It's like, what is that, 27 years ago. And so, they had all these people. Remember, there's all these people giving signals around Charlie Kirk, a lot of hand signals, and this has been dissected. Again, I haven't covered it that much. I know it exists. People have been leaving comments and things. So this was from earlier in the movie, but I went back and grabbed it because of the, this. He was one of the 5 people in the conspiracy.
Productive on his way out.
Did he know he was on a suicide mission?
He does now.
With all due respect, sir, we should have been out of here 11 minutes ago.
I'm not big on the numbers thing, but I want to point this out. 11 comes up a lot. And I think I have 2 clips of that. One where it's a hotel room. It ends in 11. The number 7, which I already said. And that has a tie to Charlie Kirk, and that comes up again and again because they show these scenes again later on. They show the scenes from a different angle, and so that blimp comes back up with the Illuminati eye on it. These all things become significant later on in the story, but they bring up 11 quite a bit. And again, this is pre 9/11, right? Because of the time that it was shot, and so there was no demonizing crazy conspiracy theories and theorists. And these other things, right? That stuff didn't exist yet.
You do have a contingency plan, don't you, sir?
Yes, but I don't like it.
Why not?
Because a soldier deserves that. Jesus Christ.
He doesn't really need to kill everybody, but he does. He leaves the boxer alive, and he's much more likely to rat the whole thing out. But he kills his buddies here. See, when you have, in reality, we have a media that doesn't look into things. They just do whatever they're told by the CIA or whoever's running the show. So the media's compromised. Both parties are compromised because they both have run these types of operations. So it's off, that's why the Democrats didn't call bullshit on Trump's WWE-style fake assassination attempt. And they're not calling bullshit on this thing now with Charlie Kirk because they have done so many of these themselves, right? When whoever's in power running these bullshit operations. And so you don't need to kill all the people because, nobody would, even if they came out and gave an interview, nobody cares, right? I was talking about this so much lately about how the WWE thing, I watched that Netflix documentary, the second one, and how people just buy into the WWE thing. And it's because, people want to be lied to, like the majority of people, and you can't, they want to be manipulated. It's like, when women get breast augmentation, they get plastic surgery, and they're satisfied with something fake, and the men they're with are attracted to it because people want to be deceived, right? I mean, the whole makeup industry and all the things that go with it, where people just, doing something, putting fake shit up on Instagram, like everybody's there. And Facebook and things like this. Everybody is, putting out these publicity, like their own publicist. And they're putting out fake shit all the time. And people like it. Like they like, they like the illusion. And now because of the people aren't even in the real world, they spend most of the time on the internet, they want to be, deceived. They don't call bullshit on all the fake shit out there. Like people like the fake shit. And they, they really just want it to be a show, like sports is rigged. The gambling industry makes 8 times or 4 times what the gambling industry made $80 billion on betting. And the whole National Football League, this is like 2020 numbers. I covered it back then. And the National Football League that same year made $20 billion. And so, I mean, it's just, everything is like staged and fake, and people just like it. They like WWE style life where all these narratives play to a certain level of things that they can understand, and they just go with it, and they know it's bullshit on some level, but they go along with it because it's just too much work. I've talked about how exhausting it is to read the ingredients, so it's just too much work to say anything about it. So they don't need to kill everybody, right? Because people just go along with it. People just they want the simple answer that doesn't make them ask questions about the overall government, the overall, system, and how bad it is and how corrupt it is. And they can just pretend it's some angry young dude who, decides to go shoot somebody, right? So that's the bald guy that's doing security, and that's the red-haired girl who's just been shot. This is a flashback. And that's the Palestinian dude that they've used as a sniper who is, you know, he's being blamed for the whole thing. And this blonde girl who is, she does wear a blonde wig, is a whistleblower who, well, I guess this is covered over here.
Been writing to me.
Just look in the envelope, Mr. Secretary.
What is it?
It's the satellite infrared from yesterday's tests.
They gave me those. They showed convergent impact.
Well, and they gave you doctored copies. These are the originals straight from the proving ground.
This is Charlie Kirkland. Charles Kirkland. You know, not Charlie Shekels Kirk, but, you know, you get the... And he is a Democratic Defense Department secretary. And she knows that these missile tests came out in a way that the system's flawed. And so she contacted him, but these guys picked it up and said she would meet him at the fight. So they had set this up where she would come sit next to him when this guy, this real killer, whatever his name, Kevin, is chasing the red-haired girl around, like chasing the white rabbit in Alice in Wonderland. And so they have her in position and him. And they're going to kill them both here. But the shooter, Nicolas Cage, pulls her away and the bullet misses her. And so she is whistleblowing here, and this, you know, they're replaying this scene here.
Okay.
She has the insurance.
I need you to look at the heat flashes here at the moment of impact. If the air guard is made full intercept like it's supposed to, there'll be one dot, but there's two every time. The target blows up, but the air guard never gets within 10 meters of it.
So they show this from a different angle, and so the guy in the audience gives a single, "Bring the pain," and then the champ takes a dive, and so everybody stands up and they're distracted by the knockout, and then the Palestinian guy breaks through that glass area so he can shoot this Charles Kirkland and the whistleblower, right, part of this conspiracy. The guy's with the red-haired woman back there, so he can shoot the Palestinian guy in the back here.
Why would the target blow up?
Well, because they rigged it, Mr. Secretary. They put on a fireworks display for you. The air guard doesn't work, and the company knows. So
the fighter in the rig fight takes a dive, right, and it's an acted thing. They love these split screens back in the the late 90s. He takes a dive. The guy says, "Bring the pain," so because he's all hooked up to the earpiece. She's talking to Charlie Kirkland. Now, she saw those four people setting up the assassination, but she went through with it anyway. Right? But, you know.
The system doesn't work, but they're pushing it through anyway. I know what they're thinking. We get it approved now, we say we're sorry, and we fix it later. But I am telling you, you are the one that's going to be sorry.
Jesus Christ, Bert Powell's out of his mind.
If you deploy that weapon system, and war breaks...
Then the lady in the red dress calls Nicolas Cage and tells him his lucky number, and then, which is 7. He looks up, and then all those things happen. But really, this thing, they're going to reference Snake Eyes, right? He's getting snake-eyed because he's, also a patsy.
All right, I do. Don't make any plans for the next 6 months, young lady. You're going to be sending some people to jail.
So here you have the blood on Nicolas Cage's face, and he's like the Trump-like character here, the dumb, guy who thinks it's about him, and he's being manipulated by his depravity. And he's got the Trump fake blood on him, like Trump had during his fake assassination attempt. So here's the split screen of Charlie Kirkland, just like with Charlie Kirk. And if you've seen the event where he's shot in the neck, Charlie Kirk is, and people have said it's prosthetics, it's there's some kind of rigged blood packet that happened, and then his body makes a movement that kind of looks like he was shot, but there's other people, experts, saying that his body wouldn't move like that. There's another theory about this being a hologram. There was the camera that was removed that could be a hologram projector. So there's various theories. And I don't know whether Charlie Kirk is a real person. I don't know if they're CIA plants. I don't know any of those things. Like these things are all possible. But what makes this different is Trump was, he got a fake bloody ear. Whereas Charlie Kirk is dead, in terms of the official story of the narrative. And you see the blood gushing out. I mean, it's much more believable, Charlie Kirk is, than Trump. That's why the Trump thing didn't stick. It looks so WWE. It looks so fake, even though people went along with it. it didn't stick. Like they talk about once in a while, but everyone kind of knows on some level it's fake. But with this guy, with Charlie Kirk and bleeding in the neck, and the whole, the video you see, it looks much more believable. Okay, so this was from earlier in the film. Somehow I missed this, but you see him shooting the Palestinian patsy there. But this is from, he's coming into a stairwell, and there's an exit sign behind him. And he, and again, he's bathed in the ritualistic sacrifice blood color, some satanic color of red, right? That this, I mean, it's just, it's throughout the film.
I'm sorry.
So this is where his bestie Kevin, who's been the straight arrow their whole life, I mean, it's a very, B-level movie. And she's telling him that, what happened with the whole, that this guy Kevin was involved. She's talking about all the things she saw. And, he was together with the other conspirators. And he's in denial. He's saying that's not what happened, even though he's a corrupt piece of shit, because he, believes in his friend, and that his friend has sort of set him up. And then he gets angry, like this is a sheeple reaction here. And I'll show you that in a second. But Kevin is planting the, the manifesto on the patsy there when he's,
I'm sorry. I wish I didn't know any of this either.
Who the hell do you think you are, lady?
Who the hell you think you are, lady? Lady. Come on, lady. Who the hell do you think you are?
Sticking your nose in where it doesn't belong. You were a number cruncher. Just crunch the goddamn numbers.
I've done this for a number of years. And, I worked as a counselor. I've, master's degree in counseling. I'd work with these treatment centers and things like this. And I've seen this over and over in my personal life. Stuff to do with my meditation, the Sajmarg meditation turning into a cult. And that people just don't want to know things. I mean, I see it every day here when I make the videos. How much people just don't want to know things, right? And there's people who claim to be, that they've woken up, that they're awake. And yet when it comes to Trump's fake assassination attempt, they don't want to hear it, right? You guys have people like this in your life. People don't want the truth. Like, they want part of the truth. They want the truth where the Democrats are the villains and the Republicans are great, or the Republicans are great and the Democrats are the villains. I mean, whatever it is. The Democrats are great and the Republicans are the villains. Everything's Trump. But they don't want to hear about their own bullshit, right? They don't want to hear that our society's 100% fucked. Like, everybody's a lying piece of shit, and we're getting worse with each generation, and we're going in the wrong fucking direction collectively, and this is an evil empire. Like, no one wants to hear that shit. Because then there's no hope, right? As long as there's good guys and bad guys, then the good guys can win, and the good guys always win because we see it in the movies. The good guys almost kind of win here. But he's saying to her, like, she was working in this, military industrial complex, and she realized that these missile tests were faked, that there's flaws in the program. And so she did some deep dive research into it and figured it out, and then contacted the Secretary of Defense, who would now be the Secretary of War. Of course, the guy Charlie Kirkland, Charles Kirkland, Charlie Shekels Kirk. And she contacts him, and he's saying, "Why did you do all that? Like, now, this shit goes on all along." They have a conversation at the end of the movie I'm not going to show you, where he ends up, kind of fucked over because he did the right thing. And she's all optimistic that this is going to go somewhere. And he says, you're just naive. Like, this is not going to change anything, right? Which is, why he wouldn't have done what he did. Because you can't fix a corrupt system. And if you try to be a whistleblower, you try to do the right thing, they just roll over you. Like, it's just, it's there.
Who gives a shit if you're sorry?
What are you mad at me for?
Because I didn't have to know! You decided to have this problem, not me! My world would have gone on turning just fine, but either way I look, I have to do something I don't want to do. Do you understand what I'm saying? I do not want to do this!
He didn't want to know, right? Which is great. It's a shitty movie, but it has a lot of shit in it. Like, if you watch it, even if the Charlie Kirk thing hadn't happened, this thing has all the, conspiracy theory stuff. We'll bring back in the like Illuminati eye stuff in a moment, right? But that's the majority of people. They don't want to know, and now he has a choice to make. Like I've said, I had this video like a long time ago. I talked about reading the ingredients, right? Where how exhaustive it is when you have to read the ingredients, not just on the back of foods that they're trying to poison you with, but all the other things. You have to read the ingredients. You hear the official story, and then you're like, well, what's the truth here? And it's exhausting. Like it'd be so much easier if they, people weren't lying to you all the time, and not just in the government, but people in your own life and all these things. Like people just, the way that people lie, and people lie without even thinking about it. Lying when they put out their fake life on Instagram and on Facebook, right? And so like this is, people just don't want to know. And he's saying he either has to kill her or he has to, go up against his best friend, and he doesn't want to do either one of those things because he lives in a shitty world. And he's just trying to, get by taking bribes and payoffs and whatever. But now he has like a moral decision to make, which he doesn't want to have.
And the plan I bought, that prairie populist who is criminally dismantling the entire armed forces, goes down. The disloyal employee, she goes down with him. The fanatical terrorist, he takes the rap.
So this is the evil CEO, and he's doing his monologue of all the things that he's pleading, what he's done with this guy, and that they had a Defense Department secretary who was dismantling the military because he was Democrat or whatever, and that he would be able to kill him, and then the girl that ratted out the missile program, and blame it on some radical terrorist Muslim patsy, right? Which, applies to the Charlie Kirk thing and then all the rest of these things as well. And then, but it's more than just some company or one guy. Like this is a comprehensive, where pretty much everybody's in on it or at least complicit. All the media networks who, people are like, yeah, we know this is bullshit, but we're going to cover it anyway. Both political parties. I mean, the thing with Charlie Kirk and Trump's fake assassination attempt and that thing with Luigi Mangione and then all these other things. They're all in on it, right? And it's like these are system killers. Like if the truth comes out, and people will reject the truth, right? I mean, the truth comes out all the time and people reject it. But if it came out in some way that was undeniable to people, if the mainstream media verified that this all stuff had happened and this was a comprehensive conspiracy, then the system would fall apart because our system is built on preservation, right? On perception. I'm sorry, not preservation, but on perception. Like if we perceive that our money has value, we perceive that our leaders aren't completely, worthless piece of shit. That we perceive that we're good people and we're not a part of some evil empire. And you pull down that perception, to those of us who see it like for what it is, it's pretty fucking painful. I mean, it's demotivating.
The Air Guard missile contract is approved, and I get enough money to finish the goddamn millennium.
Okay, so there's that.
It's called the Zero Gravity Flying Eye. New camera, got it in this morning.
So nobody knew you had it?
Well, I knew.
Okay, so this is a scene in where the Nicolas Cage character sees the Illuminati eye blimp that they have. It's kind of like a drone. And he realizes that this thing has all been taped. And then his best friends are going to bust in on the room and they're going to have a confrontation. And I'm not going to cover too much of it, but there's, this is tied to the Charlie Kirk thing because of the possible hologram camera that was removed by the one of the workers of Turning Point, TPUSA. So there's a hologram camera on the left. I covered this in a video 2 videos ago. And there's what he removed. This guy also gave the footage. And there's the miracle bullet, the bullet that hit Charlie Kirk in the neck and would have went through 2 mooses and 2 elk and steel plates, but Charlie Kirk somehow saved all the people behind him with his magic bullet stopping innards, right? And so people have speculated this is a hologram camera, so this part of the thing with the blimp and a secret camera that was behind the Nicolas Cage character then sees his best friend. He sees all the things that the girl said he did. And then he realizes the guy's guilty.
At this time, I'd like to extend my deepest sympathies to the Secretary's family.
So this is where they announce that Charlie Kirkland is dead. And it's this guy, the CEO, announcing it, which of course wouldn't be the case. But he's expressing his sympathies to him.
And to the nation, to the people that he so faithfully and proudly served. And I have something else to say.
This is where he throws a switch. He goes from, let's have sympathy for Charles Kirkland. But now let's fucking attack these anti-American motherfuckers who are spreading hate and, like all the things that Trump and Stephen Miller and J.D. Vance said at the memorial, all the stuff that they've been saying about removing your free speech and all the bullshit they're talking about. When they're the ones who, Trump is the one who's benefited from this more than anybody else. Israel as well. Israel and Trump are, one entity. But Trump, he went from being on the defensive to going on the attack, right? And Jeffrey Epstein's story is dead. Like, it's dead. It's like 2 weeks ago, all this information was revealed. Trump's very, very damning birthday message was released. And all this other Epstein stuff was being released. And the Democrats were on the attack, and Trump was on his heels, and now he's just going on full attack mode with the Charlie Kirk victim consciousness and martyrdom, right?
For those that would try to bully us or to terrorize us, to divert us from the causes of peace and justice, I want you to know that in spite of what's happened here tonight, we are not deterred.
And so then they have a conversation where the guy's trying to buy off Nicolas Cage, and I'll refer to that at the end of this thing.
Secretary Kirkland's wishes.
It's called the first draft of history.
So I missed a little piece there, but what the guy says is that we are going ahead with this missile defense program just like Charlie Kirkland wished. And this is the exact same thing. Trump said the last thing that Charlie Kirk said to him was, please, sir, save Chicago, because he's from Chicago, right? Which, Charlie Shekels Kirk went along with Trump's bullshit, breaking posse comitatus, which every right-wing, these right-wing dumb, fake-ass patriots who said that they defend the Constitution, right? These fake patriots that claim to defend the Constitution and are backing Trump's rolling out martial law in these cities. And, that martial law is the next step to, all the other things are going to come after. I've said this for years, and I'm not an expert. Like, many of us said it, and most of those people don't exist on the internet anymore because they were just, shadow banned out of existence, right? And so martial law is the next step, and it's been something that's been brewing all the way since 2001. They've been pushing for more, more control over you in terms of surveillance, and then all this stuff with military people at checkpoints and all that stuff, right? Like things that they did at the airport, they started rolling out in public. And Charlie Kirk went along with that because he was a piece of shit shill, right? He went along with all that kind of stuff. And so, especially the Israel stuff. And Trump is saying, what this guy is saying in the movie. Trump said the exact same thing. And this was a guy's dying wish, and it's just the opposite. And, this movie, this Department of Defense secretary wasn't wanting the missile defense program. And Charlie did want, martial law, but maybe he was, starting to back away from that because he's getting pressure from his supporters. And he was starting to change his tune on Israel and his contemporaries, some of his other shills, Candace Owens, some of these, the same, Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly that wouldn't call bullshit on Trump's WWE style fake assassination attempt, right? I have a playlist on that. So, this is classic. And this movie could apply to so many things, but they name the guy Charles Kirkland, right?
You don't abandon the whole system because of a few bugs. You fix it. Charles Kirkland was a politician, a baby kisser, not a soldier. And when the political wind said cut defense spending, he started playing political games with real soldiers' lives. He forced Powell into an early test. He positioned the system to fail.
So this kind of, is in line with what I was saying about Charlie Shekels Kirk, realizing that he was too far over on Palestine. He was too far over on, Israel's side. He was, like he said, that he had bulletproof defense of Israel. He backed all their stuff, the genocide, the murder of 40,000 children, Palestinian children or more. I mean, the whole thing that's happening there. And he wouldn't waver in his defense and his, positions. And he went to these college campuses, and he had, better skills. He had charisma and, adult level fucking experiences and, professional training. He's debating dopey college kids who are really upset and emotional about what they see and winning them over, and then trying to all do it like he's a religious person and that he's now a martyr and he's like a good Christian when he's, a good Christian in the sense that, a good corrupt Christian, right? The good, not a reflection of Jesus, like not somebody who represents what Jesus would do, right? And so, very similar here.
Come to an understanding. You got nothing, kiddo. Snake eyes. The house wins.
Okay, so I'm not a gambler, but I kind of knows how craps work, right? Which you throw these dice, and if you throw a 7, you win 7 and 11, I believe. And don't tell me if I'm wrong, because I don't care. but if you throw something else, then the odds are there. If you're going to throw 7, 8, 6, there's more combinations in dice to throw 7, 8, 6, right? And 11, there's not as good eyes, and there's 2 combinations for 11, and there's only one combination, two ones. You got to throw both ones, right, to get snake eyes. And so if you roll snake eyes, then you have to roll snake eyes again before you roll 7. And if you roll 7 or whatever it is, 7 or 11 or whatever it is, the house wins. All gambling's rigged in the house favor, right? In the house's favor. I lived near Vegas, and there's crazy money in Vegas. They have money for like parks and schools and shit. They have all this gambling, vacation, tourist money. Crazy amount of money. Because, the house always wins. And so that's what he's saying here. If snake eyes, the house wins. And then Nicolas Cage is going to say that at the end when he's got the guy on camera. It's a bullshit ending. Because it wouldn't end that way. Because the house does always win. They always get away with these things. Because people don't want to know. The truth coming out would basically take down the system. Because people would be like, oh, this is how bad it is? Like if, the majority of people knew the level of stuff that I know, and I know, a fraction of, I just know that the level of, the depravity of humanity right now. The only thing that gets me by is my meditation and the idea that this system has to come down for something better to be built. Something that's built with divine principles and not materialism and not with, egoism, right? A system based in your soul and not your ego. And I know that can happen. Will it? I don't know. But this system has to come down first, and it's collapsing right around us. And so if all you had is the system and you didn't have any faith that there could be something better on the other side, and most people that's the case, and there's all these double-digit IQ people that have trouble with abstract consciousness, abstract thought, and so they can't, they can't get there. And so, it's really demotivating, right?
Well, it looks like Tropical Storm Jezebel just may be a hurricane after all.
Okay, so this is weird because in yesterday's video, or 2 days ago video, I covered Megyn Kelly saying this.
I learned when I was out in Arizona last week that 2 weeks before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, the far-left website Jezebel declared that it had a mission to cast bad luck or a curse on Charlie.
Again, the woman in red, the woman bathed in red here. So I mocked the shit out of her for this. It was just so how angry she was about this. But then Jezebel's like a left-wing liberal, feminist, hyper-feminist magazine. Jezebel mocking Jezebel from the Old Testament. There's just so much bullshit out there. There's just so much bullshit out there. But on the same day that one of my commenters told me about Charlie Kirkland in the movie Snake Eyes, which led me to look into this and then make this video. When I found it on Paramount Prime and all the things that happened, my wife and I walking around seeing a snake and, all the things that went with it. But the same day, YouTube recommended this video. I don't watch Megyn Kelly. I've watched her a couple times recently because she had stuff to say about Charlie Kirk. Her and Tucker Carlson had an interview and her and Charlie Kirk had an interview. But I don't watch her. They recommend stuff from her every once in a while. And she was outraged because this very fringe left-wing feminist publication, Jezebel, and you can see my video. It's my last video. The video before this video. The previous video. Not the last. And so she is very outraged that Jezebel went on Etsy. No, Etsy, no shit. They have witches on Etsy. And you can go to them and pay them some money and they'll curse people. They've done it to Donald Trump, and of course it's not working. But 2 weeks before Charlie's demise, they did this. And, she's taking it fucking seriously. And she goes into a rant. But then, this tropical storm is named Jezebel, right? I just showed you from the movie. I'm like, holy shit. That's not a coincidence, right? So there's a tropical storm going on while this conspiracy to murder the Secretary of Defense in this whole Snake Eyes movie that's named Charles Kirkland, Charlie Shekels Kirk. And then Jezebel, is here twice. So the guy suicides himself. He commits suicide here. He shoots himself in the heart. When he's caught by the cameras, just in a way that wouldn't happen. And so that's the last thing here I'm going to cover. I'm just going to do a brief voiceover here. Okay, so this movie is tied to Charlie Kirk. And, yesterday I saw this thing with Megyn Kelly. And so Jezebel, and there's a storm named Jezebel in the movie. And now this thing as well. Jezebel most commonly refers to a biblical queen who was the wife of a king Ahab of Israel, known for her wicked ideology, manipulation, and persecution of prophets. However, it's also a name of a 2020 film, a musical album, a queer performance collective. Jezebel's biblical story ends with her violent death when King Jehu has her thrown from a window, and her body is subsequently trampled by horses and devoured by dogs. It doesn't end well for Jezebel. Fucking poor Jezebel. She's just, what'd she do, right? She's devoured by dogs and trampled by horses after, isn't it enough her body's thrown anyway? So, I don't know if Jezebel refers to Erica Kirk. I don't know if that's she's the big female character in this whole thing. But anyhow, there are these things that exist, and I said there's various ways to interpret them. But, the thing with me seeing Megyn Kelly say Jezebel, and then at the end of this movie, this thing happens with Jezebel, the hurricane, tropical storm Jezebel that's raging, knocking down the world. You see the world in the background, that picture I showed you earlier. They have some kind of globe on top of this casino in, Atlantic City that's on the ocean, so, tropical storms hit those places hard. Very kind of gross place over there. Not as nice as Vegas. Anyways, I was going to cover some other things. Jimmy Kimmel is on the attack now. They're keeping this story going now with Jimmy Kimmel. That seems to be all staged. I'll get to that most likely tomorrow unless some other shit happened. There was a news report I saw this morning where Trump has given the Zelensky from the Ukraine came out and said that Trump has given him the green light to bomb inside of Russia, which Joe Biden, who was completely compromised on Ukraine, and they were laundering money through the Ukraine, allegedly, more than likely. And he didn't even give the Ukraine that. So we're, that much closer to World War III. Trump is completely unhinged. Apparently, Kamala Harris She is shit all over, took a big shit all over Tim Walz. But, this is just, it's a mess, right? And I have all these stories. I'm going to have to cut things out. I'm editing things. I'm not able to cover everything because it's just a shit show every day. I mean, there's just too much content out there for my daily 1 hour to 2 hour videos. And so this is the world we live in, and things that I don't even know about. So, but, this thing with Charlie Kirkland and Charles Kirkland and Charlie Shekels Kirk, and the whole thing with the Palestinians and the Jezebel and all these other things. There's a lot here, right? But anyways, let me wrap this one up here. Okay, so I was going to wrap the video up here. In fact, I did. I had rendered it and I was about to upload it. But my wife and I went out and walked, and I told her about the Jezebel thing. I hadn't talked to her about, the Megyn Kelly. I maybe mentioned it yesterday. But here's, Jezebel is possibly being Erica Kirk. I don't know. She's mic'd up here.
I love you.
No, he's got no wedding ring on here, which is a big controversy. My wife knows more about some of these things than I do. I'm not, I don't care about the stuff because I've just seen this so much. But, her being mic'd up, and this is 3 days, 2.5 days after he died. His hands look all plastic. When I saw my grandfather, who had fought in 2 world wars and played professional football for the Chicago Bears for $12 a game, and he was probably the toughest guy I knew in terms of the old school tough guys. He wasn't, or like an asshole, but he was, he was a fireman too, and he made fishing poles. He just was a cool person. Brought me deep sea fishing. And I saw his body when I was 10 years old. And I'm like, that's not my grandfather. It's my first interaction where I saw the presence of a soul, or the lack thereof, right? Recently, we had a dog that died, was hit by a car, Farley. And, we scooped her up from the road and buried her. But, she wasn't, the body isn't the soul, right? The absence of the soul. When the soul leaves the body, then there's nothing there. That's the person. The person's gone. It's just the sleeve they were in. The body is, it's irrelevant. So all this stuff with wakes and touching the body, it's good to see the body, so it gives you some closure that the person's actually dead, right? So when you can see the body, there's that. But other than that, there's no real value because the soul has already left. And by hanging on to it, again, where's his wedding ring? And, where's her family? Where's his family? And she's posting all this stuff. She made a big deal about Usha. Usha Vance, and then she looks back at the camera there. There's a camera on him. It's still, she's just, this whole thing. She made a big deal about all this stuff, right? Just days after their husband's dead. And for most people, and he was killed in such a public and graphic way, and she was there when it happened. And, just all of it. The blood pouring out of his neck in terms of the official video. And, just disappear. You don't have to be performative. All this Instagram shit, right? Performing on Instagram, this stuff here when she gave that speech and the other speech, right? All the stuff that she did. This thing with a casket here, her giving this speech here, which was so bad, so performative, so beauty queen-esque, all these things. And just brutal, just absolutely just a nightmare. And just so insincere and so fake and so non-authentic. And so, I also want to talk a little bit about a scene in the movie. Let me talk about that, then we'll come back to Erica Kirk. So there's a scene in the movie where the Kevin character is trying to bribe the main character played by Nicolas Cage. And Nicolas Cage is getting bribes and betting on the fight, and he's just being a scumbag throughout the movie. But now he has to murder this girl. He has to give up this girl. He has her in custody. This innocent girl who's a whistleblower. And he has to give her up. He's offered $1 million. And the guy says to him, you won't wear this hero thing well. Because as soon as you become a hero, they'll start looking into your past. and they'll, your corruption. And then your girlfriend will leave, but she'll also rat you out, and then you'll lose your wife, and then you'll be, in jail, and nobody, all this stuff. He says you maybe get to see your kids a couple times a month if they want to come over to the shitty apartment you're living in, right? These things. And all that stuff happens at the end. He's lost everything because he did the right thing. And the woman comes up to him, and she's like, they kind of make out a little bit. They're like hooking up, the girl that was the whistleblower. But he's going to jail for 18 months and just all these things, right? And, it's very telling because, oftentimes people who do the right thing get punished. And so, and it's not going to change anything, right? That's why I don't really, judge these people, because these corrupt politicians, I'm hard on them when I talk about them, but I don't personally judge them because I know they're fucked and they're doing the wrong thing. They're most times, unless they're playing some divine role, they're going against their soul's path. But there's not really much you can do. It's a completely corrupt system. You can't bring God and light and love into this system. You can have it in your own life. You can carve out your own little pocket of the future, right? Like what this channel's about or whatever. You can carve out something like that, but you can't affect the beastly system. And so, and the people that are in there, it's so contrived, and it's so performative, and so like just low brow, low consciousness. It's for dumb fucks, right? The show is mostly for dumb fucks. And people who have, and I don't mean in terms of IQ, I mean in terms of your consciousness level and your awareness level. And people who can see through it, it's, it's painful for you, and you have to reconcile any way you can. But, if you realize that you can still connect to the divinity within you, you can still have a relationship with God, and you can participate in a better future right now. And, you leave the system to the depraved people. You have to exist in it, but you can sort of, not be embedded in the system. You're in it, you're in the system because we all are, but you don't have to be, these people who are really in the system. And so Erica Kirk, there's lots of rumors. My wife was telling me some of them about her. Now, I don't really care about these things, and I don't do things on a factually based situation because facts are, they're just hearsay for the most part. There's the official story, and then there's speculation and conspiracy. And, we can have the speculation, but you'll never prove it, and it'll never be verified or validated by the beast. It'll never be accepted as truth to the majority of people. But it is truth. There's truth there. And the things I do know is that the people that have benefited from Charlie Kirk's death, and you always have to look at the people who benefited as being the ones who did it, would be Donald J. Trump and Benjamin J. Netanyahu and Erica J. Shekels Kirk, right? And so there's these things about their, I showed their first, where they talk about how they met for the first time and their first date and these things. But there's this other story where her dad might have been working for the Mossad or be Mossad or Mossad adjacent, and that she, these CIA creations, these kids that grow up in the CIA and these programs, that both Charlie Kirk and her were that, and they were this fake couple, like they put together these Hollywood celebrities as these fake couples. It's not a real couple, which would explain a lot. There's no pictures of her being pregnant on her Instagram. There's some of these other things. So her dad was Mossad adjacent, and her and her mom were in Israel, and she was already wealthy and, millionaire at that time. And that's where she first saw Charlie Kirk, and her mom told her to go talk to her. But her mom and his mom, her parents and his parents aren't even involved in this funeral. And so, like, she could, be considered a Jezebel here, right? Like, she could be the Jezebel because she's the only female involved in this. And she now has a very prominent role. She has that martyr money, right? She has that, the power of the martyr that Turning Point now has. It's a bullshit martyr because he was, more than likely killed by our own government or, Mossad or whatever it is, or maybe not even dead at all, right? So, but it's a fake martyrdom. But martyrdom is so important to the Christian tradition. I've talked about how martyrdom is bogus. The Old Testament is just horrible piece of shit book. All the things I talk about in my other videos. And so, her being the Jezebel, that role would fit based on all these theories about her and her performance. Like, I do know her performance. You know, if you lost your husband, you know, fuck the world. Like, you know, you got your kids and you have your family, but you're in a state of shock and no one expects you to give a speech. But this is when people are watching, right? Like, if she waited the appropriate time before coming out in public, like, I've seen people be so devastated by losing someone that they're, like, psychologically broken and they can't even function. They're, like, drooling on themselves, right? And, you know, the way that this went down, it would totally be understandable that she wouldn't want to go out in public for maybe months. But 2 months from now, there'll be so many different stories that Charlie Kirk and his death will have disappeared. And nobody will actually know who she is. But by giving that first ridiculous speech and then throwing that, you know, that sparkly, you know, with the sparklers thing with Donald Trump and her forgiving him in that bogus way that she did, you know, all that stuff, and like just insincere and not believable, fake tears and all of it. She became a prominent figure. And now she's running the business, which she's definitely an ambitious person. And so, you know, I mean, Jezebel is, you know, I mean, if there's somebody there's a Jezebel in this story, it's her. Anyways, I thought I would add these things here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Parabano, definitely important for the apocalypse. And the ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.